Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high-performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. My guest today is business coach and operations consultant Kyle Livingston. From being left at a yard sale as a 12-week-old baby to losing $160K of his own money in a failed company, Kyle knows what failure tastes like, feels like, and smells like. But he did not let his circumstances determine his attitude in life. From the lessons learned, Kyle has since built 3 7-figure brick and mortar companies, helped 9 companies in the red to become wildly profitable. And now as a business coach and consultant, his goal is to help others turn chaos into profit. Now that's a story you don't hear every day. Kyle has had some really traumatic life experiences, but he has managed to turn things around and become very successful. And I can't wait to hear more about it. So welcome, Kyle, and thank you so much for being on my show today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to sit and chat with you more about this. I think this is going to be awesome.
I think so too. Now, Kyle, being left at a yard sale as a 12-week-old baby, I mean, that's a story that really breaks my heart. I mean, I'm a mom, so this just feels terrible. Are you willing to share more of that story today? What do you know about the background and circumstances that led up to this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more than happy to go into the detail. And it's funny, I look at this as literally the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Situationally, it seems kind of sad, but for me, it was honestly life-saving. The backstory behind it was my birth mom was she was having another relationship with a man who was married, and she got pregnant, didn't want to keep the baby, and she'd actually tried to have an abortion 3 separate occasions. And every single time they failed for one reason or another, whether the clinic said, hey, we can't do this because of a fever, or just there was an issue every single time. And as she was looking to give me up for adoption, she found a family that would take me in. And as she went into labor, she decided that she didn't want to go through with the adoption, and that she was going to keep me as her child. And so I was actually born because she did a lot of drugs while she was pregnant with me. She did a lot of, meth and cocaine and just everything that she could get her hands on, from what I understand. And I was born due to the drugs 6 weeks early as a drug baby. And so I was in an incubator for 6 weeks. I was less than 2 pounds when I was born, died in the hospital a couple of times, actually had to be resuscitated in the incubator. And after being in the hospital for 12 weeks, my mom took me home, and she didn't really know how to be a mom, right? She liked to party. She enjoyed her vices. And 12 weeks goes by, and I guess I had just been screaming my head off, crying, screaming. And so she drives out to about an hour and a half away from her house to the family that was going to adopt me. They were having a yard sale, selling off all of the stuff that they had purchased for my nursery. And so half the stuff was gone already. And she pulls up and she goes, hey, can you just watch him? I need to go party. He's been screaming his head off for the last few weeks. I can't figure it out. Can you just watch him? I need a break. And come to find out, I was screaming and crying because I was allergic to milk. And that's all she was giving me was actually milk. And so the family's like, yeah, we'll watch him, we'll see tomorrow. 2 days go by, 3 days go by, 4 days go by, and they finally get a call from her, and they say, hey, she says, hey, if you want to keep him, just keep him.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so sad.
And never came back.
That is so sad. And I mean,
obviously you don't realize what's going on as a baby, and you don't remember these things consciously. So when did you learn about this story, and what would you say, how has knowing this about your past influenced and shaped your life, your worldview, and maybe even your personality?
Yeah. Well, I found out about it in pieces as I grew up. I knew I was adopted early on, maybe 10 years old or so. I kind of knew I was adopted, found out I was adopted. And then when I was 18, actually, my parents had given me this envelope. And in the envelope was like my birth certificate and a picture of me as an infant and two girls next to me. One seemed to be 7 or 8, and one was 4 or 5. And I had no idea who these girls were. Come to find out, they're my sisters from my mom who had given me birth or gave birth to me. They were my sisters. And I'll tell you that story in a second. But growing up, it created a very interesting dynamic in the house. I grew up in a house that in the house, I had 2 brothers and a sister, all older than me by 10 years plus. And the city that I grew up in, it was very, I don't want to say like low class, but it was poor. It was a poor city. And I kind of joke around and say there's only really 3 reasons you would ever go to this city. It's in Hemet in Southern California. There's really 3 reasons you go to the city. It's for meth, death, and Scientology. And those are the only things that exist in that entire city. And so finding out I was adopted kind of created a little bit of I don't want to say animosity towards the parents that raised me, but a little bit of like, oh, well, I have an out. Like I remember getting in arguments with my mom when I would be 12 years old and we're fighting or something. I'm like, I'm just going to go call my real mom. And, and so it caused a little bit of animosity in the relationship. But what it did do was it taught me that like, I have to take care of myself as I grow up. Mm-hmm. Like no one's going to take care of me. It's something that I have to be able to handle. And growing up, it was a good thing, right? The city that I grew up in was very dangerous, so I was always protecting myself. As I got older, though, I realized that running away from that and being that mindset of like, well, I got to take care of myself. This is all for me. No one is going to have it but me. I got to have this thick skin became the shield that I used, but it also became the thing that was hurting me the most. And not letting people in, not having conversations with people, not getting help from people was definitely something that I attribute to that season or that time in my life where it was like growing up, I just felt like I needed to protect everything that was me because of the situation I grew up in. There were a lot of drugs in the house, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And this need to protect yourself and shield yourself from the bad things that are going on in the world. Yeah. I mean, have you ever had any professional support to help you work through those early traumatic experiences? Or how have you coped with this? Did you use any other strategies than just to, put on a brave face and try to protect yourself?
Well, when I was young, I started working. So I started my first business at 12 or 13 years old, going around and mowing lawns. And so I got into business early on, and that became the mask for me for a really long time. Well, what happened was I started getting into self-development because of the business world. And for me, I began looking at the self-development as a way for me to figure out who I really was and get rid of all of the masks and the issues and everything else. And so, at 15, 16 years old, I'm listening to Tony Robbins tapes and Les Brown and Zig Ziglar. And I'm starting this motivational journey. And in the area that I lived in, I'll never forget this. I was working construction at 17 years old. And I'm driving to the job site with the guys in the truck, and I have a Success magazine with me that I'm reading through. And I'm literally getting mocked the whole way there and the whole way home. And I knew right then and there, I was like, this is something that nobody else does and is willing to do who's around me. And I have to do it differently so I can be different than who they are. And so that really started me on the journey of understanding what are the lenses that I'm perceiving life through that are holding me back. One thing that I've done that I believe really helped me a lot was actually the Landmark Forum. And that for me was one of the biggest, I would say, paradigm shifts was just understanding that I'm going through life with these glasses on glasses on glasses. And I'm wearing 75 pairs of glasses because I'm hurt by this person in this experience, in this situation, in this. And it's showing up in every single thing that I do, whether I want it to or not.
Yeah. So
and that
true.
was the moment I was like, okay, I need to rewire how I work. And I guess professionally, no, I wouldn't say, but I've gotten around a lot of people who've poured into me and really helped me through that, who've also had experiences in that like that in the past and have done those things. And I would say just by surrounding myself with the right people and having the self-awareness and looking at myself has really done me a lot of good through this whole experience.
Thanks for sharing. That is so powerful. And I always say that entrepreneurship is just the biggest self-development journey you can be on.
Oh my goodness.
Because it forces you to look at your perspective, to look at your beliefs, and to work out what's working and what's not working in your life and business. Mm-hmm. And actually, I think there are quite a few people out there who have experienced trauma early on and who then went to become wildly successful because they feel this deep need to get validated and prove their worth. And if they're not careful, this can lead to workaholism, or they burn out over time. And it's not just that they put in those long hours and sacrifice everything in order to become successful. They are also often really, really hard on themselves and others. They're often perfectionists. They have this harsh inner critic and often secretly suffer from imposter syndrome, while at the same time feeling like they always have to be the smartest person in the room. Yeah. So is that something that either you've experienced yourself or seen in people you know or work with?
Oh, it's 100% something I've experienced. I mean, when I got out of high school, I went straight into the workforce, and I began in the telecommunications industry, building and climbing cell phone towers. And back then, it was it still is a very popular industry. But back then, when I was in it, it was insane. And I would work 110 hours a week. There was in 2012, I slept in my truck more than I slept in a bed. And I'm not exaggerating, like not even a hotel bed, or not even like my bed, but like a bed in general. I slept more in my truck. And I actually attribute, I'm divorced. I'm now married again to an amazing woman, but I attribute my workaholic and my desire to be proven wrong, or to prove people wrong, was one of the reasons my first marriage failed, was because I wasn't paying attention to the marriage. I was just paying attention to work. Right. So I have 1,000% experience of that. I've also burned out physically, where it took me to a point to where I physically collapsed. My central nervous system literally shut down, and I had to be rushed to the hospital because I was working and not taking care of anything else. My mindset was trash. My physical body was trash. My emotions were trash. The only thing I was doing was go. And so I do think that it can be a fuel for people for a season. And one thing that I want to say, and I was actually having a conversation with one of my friends about this the other day, I think that pain and that desire to prove people wrong, it's that chip on the shoulder people talk about. It can be used. It absolutely can be used to prove people wrong and to get to a certain level. Once you get to that level, though, the distance between wanting to prove people wrong and wanting to not be poor, it's kind of far away, right? Like it's 5, 7, 10 years ago. I've reached a certain level of success. I've outperformed everybody around me. I don't have anybody else to really prove wrong because I've kind of proven them wrong, or it's been so long ago. And I see people who have that chip get to a certain place of success, and they can't get past that because they're still operating with the same success system of proving people wrong and chip on shoulder, et cetera, that got them there. And it's not the same mechanism and the same operating system that's going to get them to the next level.
That is so true. It's this achievement from a place of lack versus from a place of abundance and growth. So it's totally different, and it's so interesting to see how just a shift in mindset can open up new doors and really change your results, like the physical results that you experience in your world. Because oftentimes people just think mindset is this woo-woo concept and it doesn't have a real impact, but it's so not true, right?
It's so not true. I heard this, I was 18 years old, and I had just gotten into this real estate investment education program. And one of the guys is standing on stage and he's doing billions of dollars a year, it seemed like to me at the time. And he says, listen, guys, the biggest thing that's holding you back is the 6 inches between your ears.
Yeah.
And I was 18 years old and I'm like, what do you mean? And that stuck with me ever since, for a decade plus. Like that one phrase has stuck with me ever since. So you're so right. So right. It's not woo-woo. It's necessary.
It really is. Now, what prompted you to start your first company at the ripe old age of 20? What made you choose entrepreneurship as your path forward?
Well, so it's a two-part story. One part I need to answer when I'm younger. And then the latter part is like a situational thing that happened that forced me into it. So I was 13, 14 years old, somewhere around there. And I wanted to go to a Bible camp that summer. And we couldn't afford it. My parents couldn't afford it. Obviously, I'm a child. I have no money. And my dad told me, he's like, hey, if you want to go, you're going to have to make your own money. He's like, I know a guy down the road. You can go mow his lawn and you could start saving. And so I go down and I mow this guy's lawn. I think his name was Earl. I go down to Earl's house and I mow Earl's lawn and I make $10. So I go to Earl's neighbor and I knock on Earl's neighbor's door and I ask him, hey, I just mowed Earl's lawn. Can I mow your lawn too? And he's like, sure, it's $5. I was like, sure. So I mow his lawn and I made enough money to go to Bible camp that year, went to Bible camp, came back. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing this. This is great. Like I'm making money. This is awesome. And so I had my little route that I would go on. And 14 years old, I had this little route that I would go on washing cars and mowing lawns. And I had worked this Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'm sitting on my waterbed at 14 years old and I'm counting my money for the day or for the weekend. And my mom walks in and she goes, hey, I see you're counting your savings. And I'm like, no. This is what I made yesterday and today. And she gets this like weird look on her face, like I'm selling drugs or something. And she sits down next to me and she starts counting it with me. And she, and for me, my dad, he was the same way. He worked 100 hours a week. He'd drive 2 hours back and forth to work. It was wild. She sits down next to me and she goes, you made more money today than Dad did.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew right then, I was like, oh man, this system's broken. I can't go work for somebody. I have to figure out something different. And then, I graduate high school, get into working for somebody. I have this really good job. I go from being a tower climber to a technician, to a foreman, to a project manager in 2 short years. And I'm 20 years old and I'm a project manager for the largest communication construction company in the nation. And I'm outperforming all of the other project managers, et cetera, et cetera. I'm doing really, really well. And all I wanted was to be paid the same as everybody else. And so I'm sitting down having a review with my boss's boss. And I've been asking him for probably 6 months to give me a raise. Hey man, I want to get a raise, want to get a raise. And he finally gives me the opportunity to get a review, sit down with him. And I said, Matt, this is what's going on. Here are the numbers. Here's what I want. And he looks at me and he sits back in his chair. He goes, you're too young to make that kind of money.
Oh,
oh, is that so? And I quit on the spot. I'm 20 years old and I quit. Give him company credit card, company truck, company laptop. And I walk out and I'm sitting on the curb of the office going, oh no, what did I just do? I'm 20 years old making 6 figures a year. What did I just do? And I'm sitting there waiting for my friend to come pick me up from the office, right? I no longer have a vehicle to get home even. And I start going through my phone and I start going through contacts and I see this one guy that I met 6 months ago that wanted to give me some work. So I called him up and before my friend picked me up, I landed my first job. I was like, cool. This is great. Well, I go do this job and I come back and I realized that I'd made more money in those 2 days than I had the entire previous month.
Wow.
I was like, got it. This is why people have businesses. And I called up my credit union that I had. I had a credit union. Called my credit union. I had like a $2,000 credit card. I'm like, hey, can I get can you raise my limit on my credit card? And the lady comes back on the phone. I'm 21 at this point. Lady comes back on the phone and she goes, yeah, we've approved you for $20,000. This is great. And that's when I actually started my first company. Was on a credit card and we were building towers, doing maintenance. And that was really my first official business was on a $20,000 credit card.
Great story. Thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely.
So how did that business work out in the end?
So the first one went really well. It was me and another guy. We were working. We made a lot of money on the jobs themselves. And then I actually had a gentleman buy the contracts from me for about $50,000. And at 22 years old, a $50,000 paycheck is like, oh, I'm Bill Gates. This is awesome.
Absolutely.
And I rolled that money into another business and partnered with some people and built 3 successful businesses, exited them, poured all the money into a 4th one, and lost everything in 9 months.
That's what I want to hear more about now. So can you share what happened there and what you learned about yourself and about entrepreneurship from that failed experiment?
That failed experiment taught me more lessons about the game and about myself and about entrepreneurship than anything else has, period. And so for anybody listening to this or watching this, and if you're going through a season of like, I'm on the downward spiral, I'm failing, there's one thing I want to encourage you to do is like pull lessons from that along the way. And so some of the lessons that I had was that there's a difference between, and I know this sounds really cliche, but there's a difference between working on the business and in the business. And let me explain. I was so focused at working in the business that I never spent any time trying to get my business ahead. I was just trying to solve the immediate, acute, day-to-day problems that existed in my business, and I couldn't see past tomorrow. And so for me, the problems that I had, I wasn't focused. I wasn't playing a long game. I was more playing a game of how do I solve this right now? And when problems arose, I didn't have any frameworks to like run those problems through. And so they would arise and I would just pull whatever solution I had in my head and I would just start attacking it. And sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't. But long story short, and I'll jump into some of the deeper lessons and frameworks that I use right now. In 9 months, we had hired and fired 64 people. We had, and granted, I had a team of about 30, right? So we cycled through our entire team twice. I lost $160,000 in cash. And I was faced at a point where I was like, I need to do something different now. But what had happened was I realized that I didn't have any type of an infrastructure for me to, or any framework for me to like operate in. And so I had to start building that framework and start asking myself the questions like, is this a today problem or is this a business problem? Like, is this a problem that is a me problem or is it a business problem? Is it a me problem or a business problem? And I had to start asking myself that over and over again. And I realized that the issues and the trauma and the glasses that I wore previously were showing up every single day in this business. And, there are parts of the business failure that I attribute to just business failure, like not running the business appropriately. But a lot of it really comes down to the traumas that I had. They were still showing up day to day. And because of that, like I said, I didn't have those frameworks. And so one of the biggest things that I encourage people to do is get some type of an infrastructure within your business, whether that's a support system of team, whether that's a framework that you run your days by, get some type of an infrastructure where it doesn't feel like everything's on you.
Right. You need the systems.
You have to have the systems, the people, the processes, something to where it doesn't feel like it's all on you. That Atlas stone, you ever that statue? That's how I picture most entrepreneurs. Is the world is on their shoulders and they're trying to go at it alone and they can't figure it out. And because I was so traumatized, I refused to ask for help. And I went an entire 9 months failing every single day, I felt like, and I didn't ask for help a single time.
That's very common though.
It is, especially in men, I feel like.
Yeah.
Especially in men.
Definitely.
And so the biggest thing is like ask for help. I mean, my biggest investments that I make every single year are in getting help. Helping business, helping people. That's the biggest investments I make now because of that season.
And I mean, I just talked to someone else about this because for some people, like, for example, just working with a coach, for instance, right? For some people, that's a sign of weakness. Like they don't want to do it because to them, it feels like if they work with someone, it says that they're not good enough yet. Like there's something that's missing. Versus when you look at like pro athletes, for instance, they work with a coach because they know that it helps them get better. Like they don't come from that place of I'm not good enough and it's a weakness. They see it like, what can I get from this? How can I get better? Mm-hmm. And they see it as a strength to surround themselves with the people who lift them up and help them grow. Mm-hmm. So that's a very important mindset shift that I see, or that I think a lot of people are not aware of, because they don't like to accept help. They don't like to ask for help because they feel like it makes them look bad.
Yeah, makes them look a little weak, makes them look a little yeah, I agree. And since then, I mean, I've invested 3 times what I lost just into coaching.
Oh, wow.
Since I lost that. And it has honestly transformed my life. And I have a book back here called Willpower Doesn't Work. I think it's by Benjamin Hardy.
Yeah.
And in that section, one of the things he talks about is if willpower was the thing that works, everybody would be skinny and rich. And because that's not the case, you have to change your environment. And so my second biggest lesson from that season was my environment that I was in. For me, in my mind, I thought, well, because we had all these guys, right, that were working for us, and they'd fly in from all over the country. And so I thought, well, I could put them up in a hotel, or I can go rent a mansion on Airbnb and we can all live in the mansion. Which one do we want to do? It's going to be the same price. Well, I'm going to go with the mansion. So we're living in these awesome houses, but I'm living with a bunch of people, and no offense to anybody in the construction industry, but typically, at least the people I was hiring at that time were, let's call it bottom of the barrel human beings. Not to be disrespectful to anybody, but they were not people that you would want to surround yourself with. Drug addicts, alcoholics, running from something, and they were living in my house with me. And so the environment needed a shift. And in that book, he talks about an environmental shift. And for me, one of the lines that I read in that book was, having to invest a large sum of money to get the help or to change the environment. And so I just said, okay, well, I started investing large sums of money to get the help. And I realized when my environment shifted, I became a different person because of my environment. And so that was the biggest thing for me, was like, is your trauma showing up? And if it is, have a framework to run your decisions through. And then 2 is like, what is the environment that you operate in, internally and externally? And how can you wire that for success?
Yes. So important. Your environment can either pull you up or it can also pull you down. I mean, it really depends on what's going on there. If you have people in your corner who support you, that creates a completely different experience. And then when you have people that are just trying to, to blame you for everything, or who complain all the time, or who don't want you to succeed because they're jealous, all that plays an important role in creating your daily experiences. Now, from those experiences, what strategies did you use going forward to build those 7-figure brick and mortar businesses that you built later on? Can you share some more of the strategies?
Sure. So the brick and mortar businesses were the businesses that I actually started before I failed. And so the brick and mortar were the businesses, the tower business that I had before I failed. So I think what would be more helpful to the audience is sharing some of the strategies that I've used to build past the failures and beyond. Because since then, we've been able to build a 7-figure business for myself now online. And I've worked with now 11 other businesses to turn them around. The biggest thing that I've really dialed this down to, it's really 3 things. So the framework here is you got to have an infrastructure, like I mentioned. Like you have to have a certain cadence that you communicate with your team. You got to have a certain process that you operate in daily. You can't be a fly by the seat of your pants. Like you have to plan out your day. You got to plan out your week. So you got to have an infrastructure that you operate in. You cannot be willy-nilly. The second thing is you have to understand the data. The data, the feedback loop is what is probably the most important thing in business. And so if you understand the data in your business, now data isn't just like marketing numbers, because at the end of every day, I go and I'll review my day. And this is part of my infrastructure. I have an end of day report that I write to myself. And I rate myself based on emotional feelings and where I'm at for the day and how much things I got accomplished. And I put a rating to it. And if I'm ever in a rut, if I'm ever in a weird place, I can go back and look at my end of day reports and look at the data and say, oh, that's why. Maybe I'm going through this season in life, or maybe there's a problem that's happening that I can't solve, or maybe I'm just not drinking enough water. Like what is the actual problems that's happening? But I have to have that data to begin looking at the situation. And so we talked about the infrastructure. We've talked about the feedback loop that provides you the data. And then when you put those two together, you can actually diagnose the problem. And you actually can't diagnose the problem without having those two things. And so, in the season where I lost a ton of money, I didn't have infrastructure. I had no feedback loops. And because of that, I had no way of actually diagnosing anything that was actually wrong with me or my business. And so when we're working with clients now, it's what's the infrastructure for your business? What's the data and feedback loops? And then how do you go in once you have that and start diagnosing? Like I said, I can look at, let's just stay on personal stuff and disconnect from the business data. If I'm going through and it's like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's my emotional happiness today? And if I go through a season where it's 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, it gives me some a feedback loop to go back and look like what else is going on to make me this way or to influence me this way. What in my environment is causing this? In business, it can be as simple as looking at your marketing numbers, and you can say like, I'll give you a really good example. This was a $300,000 bonfire that one of my clients had that I hope no one ever has to happen again. There was no data in her business. And because there was no data in her business, she was spending money on advertising that wasn't making her any money back. And she had spent over $300,000 given to Facebook and never made a dollar from it simply because she didn't have the data and had no idea how to diagnose it.
Those are great tips. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that this review process is so important, just like you mentioned, just to gather the data and then diagnose the problem, because otherwise you're just guessing.
You're just guessing. Exactly.
And I think guessing is probably not the best strategy.
Well, guessing, it's funny because like guessing and that season of running away from things kind of go hand in hand. And they'll get you along, but they're not going to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, so true. Now, I also read that you closed to 2.4 million in revenue in your first 12 months in sales. So what qualities and strategies allowed you to become such a great salesperson? Maybe you can share some tips for people who want to become better at sales.
I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but environment was the biggest thing in sales. I look at sales similar to how an athlete, a professional athlete looks at a sport. How often are you training? What are you doing for your nutrition? Are you exercising? Are you getting out in the sunlight? Simple things. But the biggest thing that really allowed me to be as successful in sales as I was I had 3 rules. And my 3 rules to selling was I will always, number 1, do what's best for the prospect, regardless of what I want. Sure, I want to close. Sure, I want to make the money. But if that's not what's best for them, I'm not going to do it. The second rule was what's best for the prospect is normally outside of their comfort zone.
True.
Right? And then number 3 was they're going to fight like hell to stay in their comfort zone. And so sometimes what's best for the prospect is challenging their beliefs, is challenging why they see something a certain way. And it's more of a challenge often than it is an agreement. So I get on the phone. I actually had a call with a gentleman a couple of weeks ago. He was trying to sell me on their dashboard services. And we talked for a total of 2 hours, 45 minutes here, 45 minutes here, et cetera, et cetera. And not a single time did he challenge any of my beliefs. Now, there's no reason that I should, unless I see the benefits in what you do, I'm probably not going to work with you, because what I want is outside of my comfort zone. And I know that I have to have somebody rip me out of that comfort zone in order to get it. And so I would have conversations with people and, they have a credit card, they have a business, they're ready to rock. And I'm like, hey, we're not going to work with you. They're like, why? And it's like, you're not coachable. I can't help you. You're unwilling to move out of your comfort zone. And then there are other times where I get on sales calls and within 40 minutes, people are weeping and they're crying and they're realizing the big things that are happening all because I've challenged them. And I do it from a place of like, I genuinely care about you. I'm not challenging you just to be rude. Like I genuinely care. And I think the biggest realization for me was most business owners are one of the larger fishes in the pond that they swim in, more often than not. In their communities, people look up to them. In their family, people look up to them. In their business, their employees look up to them. And there's no one in their life to really challenge them and say, hey, I don't think that's the right thing. Or, hey, maybe you should address this in a different way. Or have you ever considered this? And people don't do that often enough. And so I think if you can go into a place where you genuinely love people and genuinely care about people and genuinely want to know what's best, know that they're in their comfort zone and need to be pulled out a little bit, and that they're going to fight you a little bit to be pulled out. Those are really the three things that I attribute the success I had in that year of selling.
I love that you say this, because I think the confrontational part is probably the one thing that people shy away from the most. That's probably the thing that's the hardest for most people. They don't want to challenge others, especially not on a sales call, when they feel like, okay, when I challenge them on a sales call, they're probably not going to want to work with me. But what you're saying is it's probably the other way around. They want to work with you because you're challenging them, because you're the one who might tell them an uncomfortable truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's not a lot of people in their life that will do it.
True. Now, what does a typical day in your life look like? How do you make sure that you don't go back into a burnout and that you achieve a work-life balance that really allows you to stay happy, healthy, and productive?
So I'm not a big fan of saying, actually, let me say this. I don't think work-life balance happens on a daily level. I believe work-life balance happens on a seasonal level.
Yep.
There are seasons in my life where it's push season in business, right? And there are seasons in my life where it's push seasons in marriage or push seasons in friendships. And I had to understand that I can't push them all at the same time. And if I try and push them all at the same time, I'm either A, not pushing anything, or I'm going to burn out way too fast. And so, and like for me, for example, right now, these last few months have been a really big push season. We're launching a new product. We have a different thing that's going on in the background. We're looking to do an acquisition. Like right now is a push season for us. And I just sit down with my wife, and this goes back to the environment conversation, and say, hey, listen, honey, over the next 90 days, it's going to be a push season. This is what's required of me. This is what we're doing. This is what's going on. Date nights are on Wednesdays, but this is what our life is going to look like over the next 90 days. Are you on board? She's been awesome and supportive. She's like, yeah, of course. But it's seasonal, because I know I can't push business for 12 months straight and expect everything else in my life to be great and dandy. So if you're breaking records in business and arguing with your wife, there's probably a misalignment there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you communicated that so clearly to your wife. That's a great thing to do, honestly, though.
Yeah. It's I think a lot of that actually stemmed from, I think one nugget I want to share with the audience that one of my mentors shared with me was, a lot of the times the fear holds us back from those seasons. Like, oh, I got to go into this push season. And where these conversations really started was we were making a very large life altering pivot and decision when we shut down when we lost all that money. And one of my mentors told me, he goes, look, man, grab yourself a yellow notepad and write down everything that could possibly happen, worst case scenario. Like, I want you to go deep, like live under a bridge, in a box, like everything that's realistically could possibly happen. I want you to write it down. And that was the first exercise that I had with my wife, where we wrote down every possible thing that could go wrong, every possible thing that would actually, like, we could go bankrupt, we could lose everything, we'd have to move it back in with parents, whatever, every possible thing that could go wrong. And then at the bottom of that page, we both signed it and said, we agree that the results, if we win, are worth the risks if we lose. And that was the first time that conversation her and I started having like that.
That's awesome.
And now, anytime I get afraid, I pull out that yellow, the yellow list, and I'm like, hey, we both signed this. We can't be afraid of this anymore. And we move forward.
That's so cool. I think Tim Ferriss has a similar exercise that he calls the fear setting exercise, where you basically work through all your worst fears and look at what can go wrong, how can you prevent these things from happening, what can you do if they happen. So I think that can be really, really useful.
Yeah, it has been for us. It's really freed us. If you're listening and you have like this anxiety, or you have this like nervousness around doing whatever the next step in your business is, that was what freed me from having that anxiety and having that it was like a ball and chain that was following me around. The moment I did that, it gives me an anchor, right? That's part of my infrastructure. It gives me an anchor to go back to and say, I said I was going to do it, so I'm going to do it. Yeah,
and it gives you clarity to see it on black on white, on like in ink on paper or in pencil on paper.
Yeah.
Because it helps you take this fear that's kind of like, it's just something that's at the back of your mind, and you can't really see it, you can't really touch it, it's just there and it bothers you. And once you write things down, you take it outside of your mind, you take it outside, you can see it, you can look at it on the paper. It gives you something to work with, and it's less scary.
We make it so much worse in our minds, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I have this crazy wild picture of like having these dreadlocks and living under a bridge in a box and eating, like, that's not ever going to happen to me. You know what I mean? Like, so I need to actually be clear on what the actual reality worst case scenario would be.
Exactly. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today?
One of the things I think I want to share with the listeners is just around that anxiety and that fear is like, it's always going to be there. It doesn't go away at the next level. You make $100,000 a year, you make $100,000 a month, you make $100 million a year. You're always going to have that anxiety. You're always going to have that fear, and pausing, feeling it, sensing it, understanding it, and then doing what you know you need to do for your future and for your life and for your legacy anyway is what separate the people who win and the people who lose. So if you're in a position right now where it's like, I'm afraid of going to this next season, good, do it anyway, and move forward and do the things that you know you need to do, because your family and your future and your life is literally waiting for it.
So true. Yeah, those are great, a great reminder at the end of this interview. So where can people find you online if they would like to learn more about you or work with you or just connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to go find me is on YouTube. We have our podcast on YouTube. You can just search my name, Kyle Livingston. For the listeners that have a business and want to have some of this, this infrastructure and data that I've talked about, we've taken everything that we've used for these 11 companies that we've scaled past a 7-figure mark. We've condensed all of that down into a simple and easy to use infrastructure and framework for your business. You can grab that for free at visionaryvitals.com. It's totally free. You just opt in, grab that, and grab that download. It's visionaryvitals.com. It'll help you get that infrastructure and data collection that we're talking about, so you can actually go and diagnose your own business.
Oh, perfect. Kyle, thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story and your valuable insights with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time to do this. I know it takes time out of your day every single day, and I can tell you love pouring into your audience. And so I just wanted to take time out of this last little bit and just say thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care, absolutely. And talk to you soon.
Cool. Thanks, Claudia. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. That's a fantastic, easy, and zero-cost way to help the show grow. Just use the link in the show notes and make my day. If you'd like to take it one step further, you can now join my inner circle and become an official supporter of the Wired for Success podcast. Supporting the show is super simple and will only take you about 30 seconds. Basically, it works like any other paid subscription. All you have to do is go to glow.fm Wired for Success podcast. Pay $5 per month or as much or as little as you like, and choose the link of the podcast player you want to use. You can listen anywhere in any app. So for less than the price of 1 to 2 fancy coffees per month, you can really make a difference and help me keep this show awesome. For more tips and info, check out my website at www.wiredforsuccess.solutions. Thank you so much, and talk to you soon.